Before I read my homily, I do think that I should point out that I prepared it before I realized how disruptive the snow was going to be to our travel. So please do note that if we really cannot leave our houses to get to the church, that's not really making a lame excuse. That's using prudential judgment. But on the subject of today's gospel, I think we do have to note that these are pretty lame excuses. You know, you get invited to a giant party where, worst case scenario, you get a free meal, probably a good one, and there will be things like music and fun, which you probably aren't going to get a lot of in the first century, and especially you're not going to get it at home. The TV hasn't been invented yet, neither have most board games, so you could stay at home and stare at the wall instead of going to this party. If that's your idea of fun, I guess more power to you. But it really sounds like you're passing up a good time to inspect the field and some oxen and not go out in public with your brand new spouse. Though it'd be kind of like passing up your best friend's wedding in order to look around your office, have your car inspected, and not be seen in public with the supposed love of your life. I mean, I may not be an expert in humanity, but there just seems like there's something fishy there. At the same time, I think we have to be honest. How often do we do things like this when it comes to our spiritual lives? I'm tired, so I'm going to skip my prayers. I'm on vacation, so I'm not going to go to church. I'm busy, I'm not going to read the Bible. I'd rather be playing Pokemon Go, so I'm not going to work on things that I'm actually called to do. It can be really easy for us to make progressively lamer and lamer excuses in order to avoid the demands of the Christian life. Don't get me wrong, though. Our lives are busy. There's a time and a place for rest and relaxation. Pokemon Go is a delightful video game. But all these things that are good in themselves, if we don't use wisdom and good judgment when we use these things, they can distract us from what's really important in life and take us away from God. And even there comes a point where we'll stop enjoying these things after a while. Think of that gross feeling you get when you've spent too long eating junk food and watching TV on the couch. At least I'm told this feeling exists. I'm totally not speaking from personal experience here whatsoever. But that gross feeling, it's just what happens when we use things that God meant to be used in moderation, when we take these things and use them too much. So even our earthly happiness requires us to know when we actually need a break, when we actually can't do one more thing, and, well, when we're just being wimps. Especially when it comes to the spiritual life. It's important not to take on too much and end up being burned out, but it's also important not to do too little so that God becomes an afterthought if he's even a thought on our minds at all. God wants to share his life with us, to share a life that's so intense and joyful that even our best parties on earth will seem boring by comparison. The saints of the Old Testament, whose memory we celebrate today, they knew this. They knew God had something fantastic in store for them, even if they had to live their entire lives in hope, in expectation of what they would not see on earth, the salvation that was to come through Jesus Christ. These people put their lives on hold, like Abraham and Noah. They suffered at the hands of pagan kings, like Daniel and the 3 young men. And they accomplished the will of God against all odds, like Moses and David. And now that Jesus Christ has been revealed, now that our expectation is his second coming and the resurrection of the dead, what are we going to do? I think the question we have to ask ourselves is ultimately, are we going to find a way to excuse ourselves from divine joy? Or are we going to accept this invitation to a life that knows no end, to a joy that knows no sorrow, and to a feast that is eternal?